But what we're going to do this morning is we're going to continue in our series. And we're actually week 22 of this series. We're in 1 Samuel chapter 20. So if you want to turn there, that would be awesome. And of course, 22 weeks of teaching we can't sum up in just a minute. And so what I would love for you to do, and it's going to sound kind of sketchy for some, is just go to our website and watch. You don't got to watch all 22 of them, of course. But maybe watch the last few if you haven't been here for a while, and you can kind of catch up, get into the context of what we're talking about, figure out where we're at in the story. This story is basically a soap opera, honestly. That's how I've been referencing it. It's a soap opera because all these crazy relationships happening up and down and side to side, and you've got people backstabbing each other and all these different things, just like a soap opera, really. And so we're right in the very middle of that. And you'll see today's title for the message is Arrow to the Heart. And the reason that I say that is because what we're going to see this morning is we're going to see a breakup where two people that are best friends, BFFs, they have to separate and they have to split up. And you've dealt with that before. You've had to deal with that. And maybe it was a boy, high school boyfriend, and you guys went separate ways and you broke up, and that was painful. It hurt. Or maybe it was even a marriage, and some things happened in that marriage, and you guys split up, and that was absolutely horrific. Or maybe it was a lifelong friend, right, that you guys grew up together, lived next door to each other, and then, you graduate high school, and one goes off to Penn State, and you're going to U of A, and it's like it's an arrow to the heart. It's painful. How many of you remember days where there were no social media? Remember that? Raise your hand if you. It means you're old, right? You're old. You're mature. You're wise. I was thinking of this the other day. Like, social media kind of prevents a lot of this nowadays. That when you move away or whatever, you can still stay connected to people. If you're like me, there was no staying connected to someone. Your mom said we're moving next weekend, and your lifelong friends are just gone, right? There's no keeping track with them or anything. It's really tough to do. And so a lot of you can relate to some of that. If you're younger, you probably can't because you're still in contact with them. And that's awesome. Social media gives us that great benefit of keeping connected to people, but also there's some pretty, bad stuff that comes with social media as well. So it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. So what I want to do this morning is I want to look at this kind of breakup, and we're going to start in chapter 20 of 1 Samuel. Of course, it'll be up on the screens. Also, if you have a smartphone, which probably most people do, if you get the YouVersion Bible app, if you get that, you'll be able to follow along with us as well. We have these things called events. You select events, and you'll see Oasis Church pop up there. You can click that, and all the notes and sermon outlines and all that stuff is in there. So you can go along with us as well. 1 Samuel chapter 20, we're going to read the whole chapter, so there's a lot to do this morning. I'm going to try to do it all within, my allotted time. Also, I had chili pepper yesterday, so if I have to bolt out those doors, you're just going to, worship team, come on up, and we'll just continue. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. It says this. It says, then David, so just really backtrack. Last week we saw David fleeing from Saul. Saul is the king. He's trying to kill David because David is the next king to come, and he knows it, and everybody knows it. And so Saul wants to murder him. And so David flees to his mentor, to Samuel. And Saul sends messengers. Remember, it sends spies to come and try to get him, sends soldiers. And anytime they get close to David, what do they start doing? Do you remember? Prophesying. So they're getting close. They're like trying to find David. And then they go into this trance of worship, and God's just making them worship him. And so Saul sends more people, and they get close, and they're like, oh, God, and God just takes over. Even Saul goes to try to get David, and God, through the Holy Spirit, he comes on Saul, and Saul takes off his clothes, and he's dancing and praising God. Don't do that here, please, okay? You can dance and praise God, but do it with your clothes on. But anyway, it's not working. Saul's efforts to find David, to grab David, it's not working. But, again, David realizes that Saul's after me. And so he ditches out. Again, it says, then David fled from Naioth to Ramah and came and said to Jonathan, Jonathan is Saul's son. He's the prince, okay? He says to Jonathan, what have I done? And what is my iniquity? And what is my sin before your father that he's seeking my life? He's asking Jonathan, why is your dad trying to kill me? Okay, plain and simple. why is your dad trying to kill me? It's a valid question. And Jonathan says to him, far from it, you shall not die. Behold, my father does nothing, either great or small, without disclosing it to me. So why should my father hide this thing from me? It's not so. Remember last week? Last week in chapter 19, verse 6, Saul's trying to kill David, right? And Jonathan steps up and he tells his dad, and Bob talked about that a bit, that it's hard to address your father sometimes, especially when they're wrong, and especially the king, right? And Jonathan says, Dad, quit trying to kill David. And Saul says, okay, I won't kill him. This is what he says there. Look at it right there. Saul listened to the voice of Jonathan, and Saul vowed, as the Lord lives. Now that's a strong word, okay? It's like for us saying, I swear to God, I put my hand on the Bible, I swear. Like it's as serious a promise as you can get here, that he shall not be put to death, that he's not going to kill David. He's not going to try to take his life. And then 4 verses later, what's he doing? He's trying to kill David again, right? Because we said last week, or 2 weeks ago, that Saul was a promise, what? Breaker, right? That Saul was a promise breaker. And I really believe that Jonathan is just really naive here not to realize what's going on. Well, let's keep going. Verse 3. Yet David vowed again, saying, your father knows well that I've found favor in your sight. And he said, do not let Jonathan know this, or he'll be grieved. But truly as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, there is hardly a step between me and death. He's like, listen, any day your dad's going to get me. He's going to kill me. So what does Jonathan say? Jonathan says to David, whatever you say, I'll do for you. So finally Jonathan's like, all right, bro, whatever it takes. Let's figure this out. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. You've been there before probably. You've had a friend in trouble, and you said, I'm going to do whatever I can. I'm going to be a good friend. I'm going to help you however I can. That's what Jonathan says to David. Remember, he already stood up for him, but it really didn't do too good. It didn't do very good. Verse 5, so David says to Jonathan, behold, tomorrow's the new moon, and I ought to sit down and eat with the king. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field until the 3rd evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me to run to Bethlehem, his city, because it's a yearly sacrifice there for the whole family. And if he says, let me go to verse 7, if he says it's all good, your servant will be safe. But if he's angry, know that he's decided on evil. So they have his plan. I'm not going to show up for dinner. And if Saul's mad, we know that he's trying to kill me. If he's like, that's all good, then it's no big deal. Okay? Continues. Verse 8. Therefore, deal kindly with your servant, for you've brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. But if there is iniquity in me, put me to death yourself. For why then should you bring me to your father? So we see this interaction. 2 best friends. One of them's in serious trouble. Okay? And one of them has some ability to help out. Verse 9, continuing. And Jonathan says to David, the Lord, the God of Israel, be witness. When I have sounded out my father, so he's trying to figure out what dad's thinking, about this time tomorrow or on the 3rd day, behold, if there is a good feeling toward David, shall I not then send to you and make it known to you? He's like, if my dad's okay with it, I'll let you know. If it please my father to do you harm, may the Lord do so to Jonathan and more also. Okay? If I don't make it known to you and send you away, that you may go in safety, and may the Lord be with you as he's been with my father. Now that last statement there, I'm going to highlight it for you. I guess it's not highlighted. That last statement there, may the Lord be with you as he's been with my father. Jonathan knows and believes that David is going to be the next king. And tradition would say that Jonathan is going to be the next king, that he's the prince, and he has the right to the throne. But we know better here, and Jonathan knows better and believes this, because look what he's saying. He said, like, God's going to be with you like he's been with me. Verse, going back there. There it is. Verse 14, let's continue. If I'm still alive, so this is Jonathan, okay? If I'm still alive, will you not show me the loving kindness of the Lord that I may not die? So what he's saying is that when you take your throne, please don't kill me. Okay, and this would have been a common thing. We'll get to it in a second. You shall not cut off your loving kindness from my house forever, my family. Not even when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth. 16, so Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord require it at the hands of David's enemies. Jonathan made David vow again because of his love for him, because he loved him as he loved his own life. So Jonathan asked David, listen, when you take your throne, please do not kill me and do not kill my family. Now, this would have been very common. You guys have seen the movies. A king comes and he takes the throne and he kills every single person that even has the slightest inkling of right to that throne, right? He's going to kill everybody. He's going to kill all of the kids that don't know their fathers because they're afraid that the king was the father and he could be a rightful heir. And so they're going to kill everybody. And Jonathan and David make this pact. They say, will you please not kill me or my family if I protect you? And David, if we jump way forward to 2 Samuel chapter 9, spoiler alert, if you don't want to know what happens, you want to close your ears right now. Saul and Jonathan are dead at this point, okay? And David has taken his throne at this point, back here where we're going to hit in 2 Samuel chapter 9. The whole chapter is about this David coming through. Look at what it says there. So David's on the throne. Saul and Jonathan are dead. Sorry for those of you that didn't know the story. It says this, and this is David. Is there yet anyone left in the house of Saul that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake? And so David is on the throne now. He's remembering that commitment that he made, that vow that he made with Jonathan. And he's like, is there anyone left in their family? And so they begin to search, and they find this guy. I wrote it down because I cannot say it. Mephibosheth, okay? Did I say it right? I don't know. Yes, it's Mephibosheth. They find this son of Jonathan, who it says he was crippled and would not have been out fighting the battles, would not have died in battle because he was not able. And David adopts him and takes him into his own court. And this is like the last remaining heir, and he gives him all of Saul and Jonathan's property and land, and he gives him these servants to take care of it and all these things. And so David, although Saul is a promise breaker, David is a what? Promise what? Keeper. Yeah. Billy Graham was not the first promise keeper, right? It was David. David kept his promise to his friend. Continuing, verse 18. So when Jonathan says to him, tomorrow's a new moon, and you'll be missed because your seat will be empty. When you've stayed for 3 days, you shall go quickly and come to the place where you hid yourself on that eventful day, and you shall remain there by the stone Ezel. Now that's an important place, and we're going to come back to that. I never even thought about this place before. I never even learned about it. Verse 20, we're going to come back to it though. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side. So they're making a plan. They're figuring out how they're going to relay the info, whether Saul's upset or not. Also, I'm going to go out in the field. I'm going to shoot 3 arrows to the side, as though I shot at a target. And behold, I will send the lad. So he's going to have a little boy. For those of you that are younger, a lad is a young man. I'll send the lad saying, go find the arrows. Here come the instructions. If I specifically say to the lad, behold, the arrows are on the side of you, go get them, then come, for there's safety for you and no harm, as the Lord lives. So he's saying to David, Jonathan's saying, if I shoot at the target and I tell the boy they're to the side of you, it's all good. You're not in trouble. Okay? But, verse 22, but if I say to the youth, behold, the arrows are what? Beyond you, then go, for the Lord has sent you away. As for the agreement of which you and I have spoken, behold, the Lord is between you and me forever. So they make this agreement. They make this pact that I'm going to try to figure out what my dad's thinking, okay? And here's how you're going to know what he's thinking. I'm going to go out into the field, okay? And I'm going to get my little bow and arrow, and I'm going to shoot these arrows, and I'm going to shoot them at the target, okay? I'm going to shoot them at the target there. And if I shoot and I tell the little boy they're a little bit further to the left, then you're what? Safe. If I tell them they're further, what do? You better run, right? Because my dad's coming after you. So here's what we're going to do. I got 3 arrows, okay? I need 3 volunteers. Yeah, right there, first 3. There you go. Come over here, guys. Come here. So you see on the drum shield, there's a little sticky note, okay? You get 1 arrow, okay, to shoot. And I'm going to tell you, you got to get probably about this close for it to really work, okay? So the person that gets closest to that little sticky note is going to get a prize. And that's not even close to the sticky note, by the way. Okay, you got this. You got this. Have you ever shot a bow and arrow before? Okay, all right. Yeah, an actual one. We're not bringing a real one in here because we know what happened with a fire one time, and it was... So you're going... Okay, let me do this again. You're going for that sticky note right here. This is what you're shooting at, right there. Okay? Not over here. This is for notes later, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Let's see what you got, Ellie. All right, next. Let's try Jesse. Here you go, Jess. Let's see if you see what you got. Okay. This guy could be Robin Hood. Wait. No, there, here. Yeah, there. Yeah, get it in the... There you go. Yep, let's see. Ah, all right, here we go. All right, that's your arrow, Jess. All right, you can sit down. Man, I don't even know if you guys deserve a candy bar. I don't really know. Yeah. Let's see, Mia, here we go. Okay, good job, thank you. We got a judge. Who was the closest? Who was the closest? Ellie, right here. That was on the ground. Jesse or Mia? Mia was the last one. Mia. All right, here we go, Mia. But anyway, you guys take, I know you're all close, so take one. Pass that down. You can each take one. But that was just a little bit of fun, but that's the plan, right? He says, bro, I've got a plan, and I'm going to let you know because you got to hide because you're about to die. And he says, if I shoot him to the left, I tell him to the left, hey, they're to the left, you're safe, come on, it's all gravy, it's all good, don't worry about it. If I say they're further, then you better run, okay? You better start running. Let's continue. So David hid in the field. So they're throwing all this out. The plan's out. So David hid in the field. And when the new moon came, the king sat down to eat food. The king sat on his seat as usual, the seat by the wall. And then Jonathan rose up, and Abner sat down by Saul's side. But David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul did not speak anything that day, for he thought, it's an accident. He's not clean. Surely he's not clean. I'm going to tell you, I could not read that in the Trump voice. Like, he's not clean. He's not clean. So anyway, just so you know, I don't know why I had to say that. I just did. He repeats himself constantly. Anyway, verse 27. It came about the next day, the second day of the new moon, that David's place was empty. So Saul said to Jonathan his son, why has the son of Jesse, David, not come to the meal, either yesterday or today? And Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. So the plan is being laid out here, right? They're about to find out what happens. Verse 29, continuing. For he says, I want to go home. He said, please let me go, since our family has a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to attend. And now if I found favor in your sight, please let me get away, that I may see my brothers. For this reason, he's not come to the king's table. Okay, now for those that don't know the story, he's either going to be okay with it, or he's going to be upset with it. We know Saul. How many of you think he's going to be okay with it? Nobody, right? We know, right? We already know Saul's nuts, right? Verse 30. Then Saul's anger burned against Jonathan, and he said to him, you son of a perverse and rebellious woman. I don't know why he's got to bring the mom into it. It doesn't make any sense. Do I not know that you are choosing the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness, which is weird. 31. For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Therefore now send and bring him to me, for he must surely, what? Die. Saul's upset. He still wants to kill David. Jonathan was wrong. Okay? Continuing. But Jonathan answered Saul his father and said to him, why should he be put to death? What has he done? Then Saul hurled a spear at him to strike him down. So Jonathan knew that his father had decided to put David to death. Then Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and he did not eat food on the second day of the new moon, for he was grieved over David because his father had dishonored him. I think that's so funny. I just read it like a kid throwing a fit. Like, I'm not eating dinner, right? And he's not even throwing a fit of not eating dinner because he gets a spear thrown at him. It's more so because of Saul's attitude towards David. Verse 35, we're almost done. Now it came about in the morning. Okay, so now Jonathan knows, I got to get word to David. How am I going to get word to David? I'm going out of the field. I'm going to shoot some arrows. I'm going to take a kid with me. We're going to do this all covert, okay? Covert ops. Now it came about in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field for the appointment with David, and a little lad was with him, little boy. And he said to his lad, run, find now the arrows which I'm about to shoot. And the lad was running, and he shot an arrow past him. That is dangerous. That is so dangerous. Do not do that. It is sketchy. Like anyway, that's really bad. Verse 37, when the lad reached the place of the arrow which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan called after the lad and said, is not the arrow what? Beyond you. What did that mean? Trouble. Run, right? Yes. Okay. Verse 38, and Jonathan called after the lad, hurry, be quick, do not stay. And Jonathan's lad picked up the arrow and came to his master. But the lad was not aware of anything. Only Jonathan and David knew about the matter. And when Jonathan gave his weapons to the lad and said to them, go, bring them to the city. Last two verses. When the lad was gone, David rose from the south side and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. And they kissed each other and wept together. But David wept the more. Jonathan said to David, go in safety, inasmuch as we have sworn to each other in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord will be between me and you, and between my descendants and your descendants forever. Then he rose and departed, while Jonathan went into the city. So that's a long chapter. There's a lot going on there. And I'm going to ask you the exact same question that I ask you every week, right? Which is what? What's the question? Oh, man. What stood out to you, right? What stood out to you in that text? I'll put it up on the screen, okay? So there's people that haven't been here in a while. What stood out to you in this chapter? First of all, that's shooting arrows at people running. That's unsafe. I'm just going to take bow safety, okay? That is really, really, don't ever do that, okay? People will die. Okay? That is sketchy, right? Jonathan lied to Saul for David. That's my shorthand of all that. I saw a hand up here yet. Saul was a promise breaker. David was a promise keeper. Yeah. David is a promise keeper. David equals a promise keeper, and Saul equals a promise what? Breaker. PB. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Yeah. So God at center of David and Jonathan. Yeah, I saw a hand here, yeah. Yeah, right? Yeah, that Saul's just like throwing mom under the bus. If you read the New Living, it calls her a much worse word. Yeah, what's up with mom, right? Up with mom? Like, that don't make no sense to me. Saul wasn't willing to take blame. Saul's not willing to take blame. That was harder to... Yeah. Saul's trying to kill his family, using his daughter as leverage, right? And yeah, he's family focused. He wants to take care of even the next generation and the next after that. What else? Yeah, Bill. Selflessness, yeah. Yeah. Jonathan is selfless. What else? Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to put respect here for these guys. Yeah. Well, yeah. There you had. You both had your hands up. Okay, yeah. So Saul's Attitude is peaking. Yeah, you have one, Kathy? Yeah, major risk. Yeah, Terry. Yeah, so Jonathan's heart is right with God, and that gives him vision, right? Godly vision. And Saul's heart is negative, is far from God, and so he only sees the bad, and Jonathan sees the good in people. Yeah, oh, Dawn, sorry. You've been waving for a while over there? Sorry. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, Saul's using Jonathan, right? To try to get what he wants. Saul really wants his son to take over, right? And Jonathan's like, that's not God's plan. So Saul's a user, right? We know that Saul just uses people, even his own family. All right. There's probably more, right? I came up with a few phrases that I thought first, and then one other thing. I noticed this. That's the third time that Saul has shown a spirit. Somebody he misses every time. Like he's not a good aim. Like some of you all that shot bows and arrows up here, shot arrows. But it was, you remember they said that the women saying that David killed his 10,000s, Saul his thousands? Well, no wonder he can't throw the spear, right? So let me talk to you about a few phrases. Just a few phrases that stood out to me. And the first one is this, but David wept the more. We see that in verse 41. Go ahead and go back there in your Bible with me if you've got it. It says this, verse 41. So this is right at the very end. When the lad was gone, David rose from the south side and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. And they kissed each other and wept together. But David wept the more. This stood out to me as I was reading through the text, and it makes sense that David wept the more, right? I mean, because David's losing everything. Absolutely everything. Jonathan gets to go back to the palace, gets to go back to the 6-foot wide flat screen and infinity edge pool and the buffet and the Lamborghinis. And Jonathan is simply losing a friend. Not that that's bad, not that that's not bad, but Jonathan's losing a friend, but continues to get to live the high life. And David, on the other hand, was living there and now is homeless. He can't go back home because Saul's going to have spies at his house waiting for him, waiting on the road to Bethlehem. He can't, his wife is now gone. He loses his wife. He loses his home. He loses pretty much everything. And there was one thing that stood out. I was reading through some sermons other guys had written that I didn't think about. Someone said maybe the most important thing that David lost was the ability to worship at Hebrew temples. Because we know that David was a devout worshiper of the Lord. And now he can't even go to any of those places. Remember it says that Samuel would go on rotation, and he'd go to these places, he would lead worship at these places. And he's no longer able to even do that because Saul would have had spies there. And we're going to see this drama play out between David and Saul, this soap opera. It's going to continue to play out. And we know that David's at least on the run for 18 months. But some guys, there's no evidence of how long it was. Some guys say 10 years, some say 20 years, some say 7 years. We're really not sure, but we're confident that it was years on the run. Okay? Years on the run from Saul, being homeless and living out this drama of trying to be killed day in and day out. Would have been hard, very, very difficult. David's losing everything, and maybe you can relate to having lost everything. Maybe you can. And we can lose everything in a split of a second, in a car accident, right? You can lose everything in the matter of a few hours because of a bad decision. You can lose everything in the matter of a few days or months or years. Probably a lot of us in here can relate with loss and probably relate to the concept of losing things. And maybe some of you, you lost everything not because of anything you did, but because of what maybe somebody else did. Maybe because you were connected to a promise breaker. Maybe you lost everything because of a natural disaster like those in the Bahamas right now. It's no fault of their own, just living in a place and literally lost all their possessions, right? So there are times in life when we experience loss. And some of that loss is based on our horrible, bad decisions. And other times, in David's case, he's being faithful, he's doing the right thing, and he's still experiencing all of this loss. Both physical loss, losing your home, losing all these things, but also relational. He's losing his family. Spiritual loss, losing the ability to go to worship at these places. He's losing everything, and it just sucks. Bob asked you last week, he said, where do you run, right? When it all goes, what was the word? South. Where do you run when it all goes south? I think that were kind of his words. Being pastors, we get to be with people when they gain a tremendous amount of stuff. Like we get to be there when you gain a spouse because we're at the wedding, right? We get to be there when you're gaining kids, when you're having kids, and when we get to go to juvenile court when you're adopting kids. We get to be there for great gains. We get to go to housewarming parties, and you're getting all this stuff. But as pastors, we also have to be there when you're losing everything, when someone is in the hospital and is dying, or when a husband and wife are splitting up, when a child is really sick, or when you're bankrupt, when you find out someone is not being faithful to you. We have to be there in the horrible times. We also get to be there in the best of times. And one of the things that I think I can speak for Bob in this, is we see people most of the time in times of crisis, people either run away from God or to Him. They rarely stay where they're at. They either run far away from the Lord or they run to Him. So that's my question for those of you that are experiencing loss, that have experienced loss. Where are you running? Are you running to the Lord or away from the Lord? Have you ever heard of this old man named Job? You ever heard of that guy? One of the oldest stories in the scriptures. Job lost everything in a day. Like he lost what we were talking, like the Lamborghini, the infinity edge pool. He lost his kids, his wife. He didn't lose his wife. If you know the story, like he could have lost her. It would have been okay, because she was kind of one of those naggy wives. But I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be mean, but she was kind of a nag. But he loses everything, right? One of the oldest stories that have ever been passed down. And loses it all. And we come to the end of when he finds out, and it kind of happens in the succession all throughout a day. And we come to this point in Job chapter 1, verse 20 through 22. And this is why I'm sharing this, because this is the example for us. Then Job arose, tore his robe, and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshipped. And he said, and you've heard this probably before, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Through all this, Job did not sin, nor did he blame God. Job runs to the Lord in the middle of his chaos and loss. And what's interesting about Job's attitude is what does he say? He came into the world what? Naked. What's that mean? I mean, of course, physically naked, but also what? With nothing, right? So in Job's way of looking at things, you've got your birth, right? And you've got all the stuff that you gain after birth, and then after birth, that's kind of a weird word. Loss, okay? So the way that he's describing this is I was born with literally nothing, right? He shaves his head maybe to get back to the bald baby days. I don't even know. But you're not even born coming out with a onesie and a binky, right? Like you're born with nothing. So that very first onesie, that blanket, that binky is all what? It's a what? It's a gift to you. And you get your first binky and your first puppy and your clothes and a scooter and you get all this stuff, and then you grow up and you start getting cell phones and you buy a house and you get married and all these new people are coming into your life and you're gaining and you're gaining and you're gaining. You're gaining and you're gaining and you're gaining. But for Job here, I mean, pretty much all this, right, gets erased. And he's back down to here, and he's saying, I haven't really lost anything yet, right? Because loss would put him in the negative category. Does that make sense to you? That when he came into the world, it was blessing upon blessing upon blessing upon blessing upon blessing, 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 and now there's just less blessing. That is the attitude that we ought to have, that yes, we deserve nothing, right? If you know yourself, like I know myself, I'll tell you what, I don't deserve any of this. Like, you just mark that out. I deserve all that. That's what I deserve. And so when blessings are taken away from me, I ought to not worry about it at all. It was a blessing, okay? It's like when you withhold your allowance from your kids, and they're like, oh, no, that's a gift, son, right? You don't awe me on that. Like that's the attitude that we ought to have. That's the attitude that we ought to have. Continuing, the next one, because, man, I'm going to be so far. When am I supposed to even be done? Somebody come up here and tell me. Stone easel. So this is the next thing. I told you I wanted to talk about this. This is the end of verse 19. Look what it says there. And this is when they're devising their plan. When you've stayed for 3 days, you shall go down quickly and come to the place where you hid yourself on that eventful day, and you shall remain by the stone easel. Now, the easel or ezel, does anyone know about that stone? We didn't even talk about my Old Testament classes. We never talked about this, and I was like kind of blown away at this thing. I don't know why we didn't talk about it. The stone ezel was called the stone that shows the way. The stone that shows the way. Okay? Now, this stone was at a crossroads. I got a picture of this is not it. Okay, this is not it. But think about a huge, immovable, reliable stone that sat at a crossroads that gave people direction when they came to it. Okay, if we go right here, we're going to Walmart. If we go left here, we're going to Target. If we go over it, we're going to Lowe's. Like, it was a directional stone. It gave direction to people, and it was so big that it couldn't be spun. Remember the cartoons where the guys, it was like, go that way, and the guy would spin the sign and make them go that way, or was that in The Wizard of Oz? I don't know, like that. This was immovable. It was reliable. And some of you can probably already tell where I'm going with this, like that this will preach, right? But like David, maybe you're at a crossroads in your life. Maybe you're at a crossroads in your life, and you can't figure out where to go. But I've got great news for you. Our huge, immovable, reliable rock, Jesus Christ, is there to guide you and give you direction on where to go. So stay close to the rock. Jonathan told David, stay close to the stone. Yes. Stay close to the rock that gives us guidance. If you slide all the way back to 1 Samuel chapter 2, look at what it says about our God. No one is holy like the Lord. There is no one beside you. There is no rock like our God. Stay close to the rock. Stay in touch with Jesus. I wonder if David was thinking about this rock when he shared this Psalm 18, verse 2. The Lord is my rock. So David's writing this. I wonder if he's thinking back to hiding behind that rock. The Lord is my rock, my fortress and my Savior. My God is my rock, in whom I find protection. He is my shield, the power that saves me, and the place of safety. Guys, you can come forward. If you're at a crossroads, rely on the rock that saves us. Maybe some of you are at a crossroads right now in your life. You can rely on the rock, Jesus Christ, to give you direction. Quit trying to do life on your own. Quit trying to make decisions on your own. Get close to the rock. He will protect you. He will guide you. He will give you wisdom. He will empower you to make the decisions that you need to make, those godly decisions. Let's close, and then we're going to sing a few more